The topic of our lecture today is the English noun and its grammatical categories. We're going to talk about 4 points today. The first point will be the general characteristics of the noun and its grammatical categories. The second, we're going to talk about the category of gender. The third point will be devoted to the category of number. And the last point, but not the least, is the grammatical category of case. Stop. The topic of our lecture today is the English noun and its grammatical categories. We are going to talk about 4 points today. The first one is the general characteristics of the English noun and its position within the parts of speech. The second point will be devoted to the category of gender. The third point will be about the grammatical category of number. And finally, the fourth point will be about the grammatical category of case.
Stop.
Опять скажи. Okay, let's discuss what noun generally means and what is its place within the system of parts of speech. As you know, the noun denotes all objects and persons that are united by the name of the grammatical category of thingness or substance. You know that substance actually is a very wide notion. Any concept, from a person to any abstract notion may be verbalized as a substantive by its structure. Actually, the semantic space of the category of thingness is very wide and includes such notions as, please, if you want, you may note it down. The first is names of objects and persons. These objects and persons, they make up the center of this category. Any examples here, like a student, a book, a desk, and so on. The next is the states. The states as oblivion or sleep and something like that. The names of qualities like responsibility, generosity, and so on. The names of abstract notions such as love, happiness, and the others. Also the nouns denoting the manner of action. The manner of action like style, way, manner, and the like. These last groups, they actually constitute the periphery of the category of thingness. In general, the noun is the most numerous part of speech in any language, especially in the English language. They say that the English language has the so-called noun disease. According to the statistics, around 42% of the whole words in the common word stock, they belong to the category of noun. Besides, it is the most frequently used part of speech. Because every fourth word in a general speaker's language belongs to the grammatical category of noun. Besides, the noun is also a very hospitable and open part of speech. It means that it constantly draws into its sphere the other parts of speech and thus realizes this field structure by which the parts of speech interact with each other. The most productive word building means in the category of noun is suffixation, conversion, and compounding. Among the nouns, the most numerous word building means is suffixation, of course. The most productive suffix is the suffix er, which actually means the doer of the action. We can have a lot of examples of it, like a head turner, a mind reader, a choker, a beer drinker, and the like. Conversion is also a very productive means, and specifically English, word building means. Like we have the words to smoke, a smoke, to look, a look, to go, a go, and the like. Examples of compounding are also very numerous. we have very modern and very popular words such as like a copycat, a know-how, a Humpty Dumpty, and so on. The heterogeneous semantics of the noun predetermine its wide syntactic potential. We all know that the main syntactic functions of the noun are those of the subject and the object of the sentence. But besides that, the noun may actually realize some of its secondary functions, like attribute and adverbial modifier. As for the function of the nouns used in the position of predicate, here it may realize also two functions, the primary one and the secondary one. The primary, which actually just means the object. For example, he's my husband, in which in this sentence the husband means actually it denotes the person. And if we, for example, say she's a bit of a buyer, it means that she likes to do shopping, you know, and here the noun buyer realizes its secondary function, the one of the attributive one. Or like she's a bit of a child means that she has a childish behavior. Or he was the only speaker today. It means that the word speaker here actually denotes the action. He was the only person who spoke today. And that is actually very interesting because it is very peculiar only of the English language. Maybe that's all. Это все. Как-то было не финально. Да, это было все по первому вопросу. Можно?
Ладно, давайте начнем.
Let's turn to the analysis of the grammatical category of gender. And here we can find the following ways of expressing gender in English. First of all, gender can be expressed by suffixes. The most popular actually suffix is ESS. You know, a lot of examples in it. Like a waiter, waitress, a stewardess, stewardess, a tiger, tigress, and the like. The second means is opposition of Lexemes, which actually means two unrelated words denoting the feminine and the masculine object. For example, the husband, the wife, the bull, the cow, the cock, the hen, and the like. The mother, the father, of course. And the third means is compounding, using a component of a compound word. Like, you know, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. You know, a he cat, a she cat, a landlord, a landlady, a postman, a postwoman, and the like. As you can see, all these are lexical, not grammatical means of expressing gender. As for the grammatical expression of the category of gender, it is manifested in the fact that there exists a certain correlation, gender correlation, between the noun used and the personal pronoun, which is used to substitute this noun. We actually talk about the personal pronouns he and she. From this point of view, from the point of view of gender distinction, all English nouns may be divided into two subgroups. The first one is person nouns, which is nouns denoting people, and the other one is non-person nouns. This means nouns denoting all objects, animate and inanimate, but not people. This is not the same as animated and inanimated nouns. From this point of view, all person nouns may be divided into feminine and masculine gender. However, this supposition is not absolute, and this supposition is not absolute because it doesn't embrace all the nouns. This is the first argument. And the second one, that even within the person nouns, there exist such nouns which belong to the so-called common gender. Like we have the nouns parent, denoting родитель, both mother and father, the noun teacher, which can denote both feminine and masculine teacher, and president, prime minister, all the other nouns. Besides, it is very interesting that in the English language, then the choice of the personal pronoun, even within inanimate objects, may be determined by other factors, such as tradition or the author's individual perception. Thus, it is very interesting that, for example, cars and ships, they are traditionally interpreted by their owners as she. You know, how is your car? She's okay. From the point of view of the Russian speaker, it is very strange that the noun car is treated as a feminine one. They say there is some evidence that nowadays, with more and more women being drivers, then the cars, you know, are starting to be referred to as he. For example, if I am asked, how's your car? I could say he's okay. You know, we can treat it as the English humor maybe, or the tendency which actually runs counter to the general one. In fiction, it is also very interesting that different cultures and different, ethnic groups, they interpret the nouns as belonging to different genders. For example, in Russian, when we speak about fairy tales, you know, like the word fox is associated with a feminine one, which in our Russian fairy tales is like lisa, хитрая, meaning like she is a woman. In English, it is contrary, and it is he. You know, bratец лис. If we look at English fairy tales, cartoons, and poems, we actually see foxes being referred to as men. This actually shows the difference, the cultural difference between our two languages. All these arguments speak in favor of treating the category of gender in the English nouns as a purely semantic category, which actually finds both lexical and grammatical expression in the language. Stop. Так, подождите. Я теперь забыла, откуда мы начнем. Уже можно? Сейчас будет, да? Да. Запись? Господи. Подожди. The grammatical category of number in the English language is conceptual by its nature. You know what is conceptual? Conceptual, it means that it reflects the quantitative relations between homogeneous objects of reality. The category is represented by a binary privative opposition of singular and plural nouns. The plural form being the strong member of the opposition, and the singular one being the weak component of the opposition. The formal marker of plural, actually of this opposition, is the plural ending, which is constituted by a number of grammatic and phonetically and grammatically conditioned allomorphs. Like we have the ending z in boys, girls, after the voiced consonants and vowels. We have the ending s after devoiced consonants like students, books, and the like. The ending is like classes, benches, and so on. Also, we have some historically predetermined endings within the plural forms, like en, like oxen, children, or zero morpheme, like sheep, deer, which has no zero plural ending, and also some Latin and Greek endings, like the ending e in criterion, criteria, phenomenon, phenomena, and the like. Some plural forms actually have two variants which are differentiated, for example, lexically. So in the word penny, which means a coin, we have two plural forms, like we have pennies, which means копейки, and the word pence, which means the sum of money. It's like 5 pounds and 3 pence. Sometimes the difference may be not lexical but stylistical. For example, in the word brother, brothers, we have two plural forms. The word brothers means people being male relatives, and the word brethren, which means spiritually united people, like brethren in the arms or brethren by the spirit, and the like. The forms of the plural semantically are also not homogeneous. They are very varied actually, and the general meaning of plurality, paradigmatic meaning of plurality, may be represented by several syntagmatic variants. Let's name some of them. The first is discrete plurality. Discrete plurality means discrete objects of reality, like books, houses, all the other objects. In discrete plurality, it means that we cannot differentiate between the first, the second, and the like miles, hours, and so on. Partitive plurality, which means objects consisting of two parts, like spectacles, trousers, and so on. Variety plurality, which actually we meet within even uncountable nouns, like wines, cheeses, teas, meaning different kinds of one and the same substance. Space plurality, which may be called as a poetic variant of plurality within uncountable nouns, like snows meaning снега, waters meaning vody, and the like. The very peculiar English form of plurality is the so-called clan plurality. When accompanied by the definite article, it actually denotes the whole family or the whole clan, like the Browns, the Joneses, the Romanovs, and so on. These syntagmatic variants, the ones that I have mentioned before, they are the result of the interaction between the general paradigmatic meaning of plurality and the concrete semantics of a certain word. Now let's talk about the weak member of the opposition, which is actually the singular form. The singular form of the noun is also not homogeneous. It is a heterogeneous concept which also denotes, unites some syntagmatic variants. The first one, of course, is singularity, which means one object. The second is uncountability. We talked about it. There are some words that cannot be treated as countable and belonging to plural. And the last one is generalization, when a singular member of the opposition stands for the whole class of objects. For example, a tiger is a dangerous animal, meaning all actually tigers in the world. Neutralization of the opposition between singular and plural is observed in case of the so-called generic function that I have just mentioned now. The generic function of the singular actually means that the noun in the singular stands for the whole class of objects, thus actually meaning plurality. From the point of view of its noun by characteristics, we can divide all the English nouns into two large groups: countable nouns and uncountable nouns. This feature of the noun is very important in the English language from its practical purpose, for all students that study English language as a practical subject. Because the noun being countable or uncountable calls for a certain use of articles, a certain use of the predicate in singular or plural form, and all the other grammatical moments that are connected with it. As for uncountable nouns, they can be further subdivided into different subgroups. The largest two of them are the so-called singularia tantum, this is a Latin term, and pluralia tantum. The group of singularia tantum includes such notions as abstract notions like love, friendship, sorrow, and so on. Names of mass materials like food and different other stuff like bread, butter, sugar, and so on. Names of collective inanimate objects like we have machinery, equipment, foliage, and so on. Names of sciences and professional activities like medicine, history, architecture, physics, and the like. And the last group, which is actually the most interesting from the point of view of learners of English as a foreign language, which is nouns of heterogeneous semantics. And to this group we refer such nouns as hair, money, advice, information, and the like. If the first four groups that I have mentioned do not present any difficulties for Russian learners from the point of view of its number characteristics, so the last group, the fifth group, these nouns of heterogeneous semantics, actually is the most difficult one, because here the correlation between the number of the noun in the Russian and in the English, for example, language, it is not linguistic. It is extra linguistic and determined by probably this or that language tradition. So we have this Russian word деньги, which actually means, which is plural in its nature, and the Russian word money, which is purely singular. And this actually cannot be kind of explained, though some people and even scientists, they try to find some scientific explanation for that. Actually, there is none, and we have to just learn it, memorize it, accept it, and thus master the language. As for the group of pluralia tantum, it is also not homogeneous. To this group belong, first of all, nouns which denote objects consisting of two parts. We know, like scissors, trousers, spectacles, and the like. The second group, this group unites the nouns meaning results of processes, like we have savings, belongings, labors, and the like. The nouns of multitude, which actually present a difficulty for the Russian learners, like army, police, police is actually plural in the English language, poultry, cattle, and the like. And also nouns of various semantics, like colors, skirts, oats, pajamas, and the like. These last two groups, they actually are the most difficult for us as Russian learners of the English language, because the number characteristics in English nouns and its Russian equivalents are very different. We are accustomed to treat the words like police and pajamas as singular, and thus make mistakes in translating these the sentences with these nouns. But while the English learners, they actually, from their birth, they treat them as being plural, and this actually causes a lot of difficulties. So we can make a general conclusion that the category of number, being conceptual by its nature, it has a lot of culturally dependent, purely English language, English culturally dependent peculiarities, which actually are very interesting and which we try to actually single out in this lecture. Stop. Our last point is we're going to discuss the grammatical category of case. Case is a very interesting category from the point of view that in the category of case, we can see the interplay of relations between two basic parts of speech, which is actually the noun and the verb, because the category of case presents the underlying set of relations between the action and its participants. The action actually being manifested by the verb and its participants being manifested by the noun. So from this point of view, case appears to be a nominal category which is closely related to the syntactic and semantic potential of the verb. The roles played by the nouns in the sentence may be actually expressed in different languages, depending on the type of the language. You know that our language, the Russian language, is a synthetic and highly inflectional one. So the case relations are represented by a number of inflections. We know that we have a 6-case system in the Russian language, and each case is represented by different endings, by different inflections. Since English is a language which is analytical by its character, so it means that there physically cannot be an extended system of case relations represented by inflections. In Middle English, so if we look at the history of the English language, there was a system of 4 cases represented by nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative cases. As time went on, the system of cases was getting more and more simplified, and finally in modern English we have only 2 cases are left, which is actually nominative case and possessive case, and thus we have an opposition of nominative case and possessive case, which is binary privative. Why is it binary privative? Because we have a weak component which is nominative case and a strong component which is possessive case. Also, we have a formal marker of possessivity. The formal marker of possessive case is, as you know, apostrophe s, which has some, again, phonetic and lexically dependent variants, like different allomorphs. As for the semantic meaning, semantic space of possessivity, it is very, very wide. And let's single out only the most common syntagmatic meanings of possessivity. The first one is pure possessivity, when something really belongs to somebody. Like my sister's money, it means that this is the money that belongs to my sister. The second one is subjective possessivity or agent possessivity. Like my brother's arrival doesn't mean that the arrival belongs to my brother. It means that the brother, being the subject of the action, he arrived. It means that in this case we have the subjective possessivity. The objective possessivity, when we have the phrase the criminal's arrest, it means that it doesn't mean that the arrest belongs to the criminal. It means that the criminal was arrested. So in this case, the criminal acts as the object of the arrest. It means that we have the syntagmatic variant of objective possessivity. Authorship is another meaning of possessivity. When we have Shakespeare's plays, it means that Shakespeare wrote these plays. He was the author of the plays. Destination, when we have a policeman's uniform, it means that the policeman is the one for whom this uniform is designed. So we have destination here. Measurement, for example, when we have an hour's lecture, it means this is a lecture that lasts for 1 hour. A very specific meaning of possessivity in the English language is location. When we have a phrase that I was at the dentist's and that's all, it means that you were at the dentist's office or somewhere, something like that. And also a very specific meaning of possessivity which we can find in English is a descriptive possessivity. When we have like alliance, strength, it means that the word in the possessive case, even it will be translated into Russian as an adjective, like alliance force will be like lьвиная сила, львиная доля, and something like that. Here we have the interplay between such parts of speech as the noun and the adjective. Thus we can see that, limited as it is, the system of cases in English, however, does not show the complete disappearance. As I have said, that it was restricted and limited in the course of history. But still we have 2 cases, and these 2 cases remain. Though many linguists, they actually deny the category of case its universal character, because they say, oh, it is limited to the phrase actually, not to the whole sentence. It is limited to animate objects, not to the whole class of nouns. And these are their arguments for rejecting the category of case its universal character. But a number of arguments, they speak in favor of contrary things, because there is a tendency, even in English as being a highly analytical language, to possessive case endings being added to other categories of nouns. For example, nouns denoting measures like a 2 days wait. You know, even to the phrases, the woman I danced with yesterday's name. This is a very peculiar phrase by Salinger that I can cite here, which shows that even phrases, even like a 2 wives ago's talk, because it means that the talk was with a woman that I have been knowing for a long time. Actually, these examples, they show that the category of the English case will remain in the language, and it will stay in the language as long as the language will be. This tendency is so strong in English that you know, this may speak in favor of the fact that the analytical language, as English is, may have some synthetical tendencies in its whole, you know, development. And this is the final sentence that I would like to conclude my lecture with. Thank you for your attention. Так, я уже говорю, да? Я уже забыла, что там заканчивать.
Надо сказать спасибо за просто попрощаться. Последняя фраза сегодня. Прощаемся. Благодарим за внимание и прощаемся.
Thank you for your attention.
Все.